We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Wednesday, July 17th here in Seoul. I'm Hansang Jin, and this is News Generation. Today, we're joined by Choi Ji-hee.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, and Im Sang-yeon.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. As usual, we're going to begin with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online. We begin in France, where a soldier who was part of the country's anti-terrorism military operation, Operation Sentinel, was stabbed outside the Gare de l'Est train station in Paris on Monday evening, local time. According to France's Interior Minister, he is not in serious condition and the suspect has been arrested. With the opening ceremony of the Paris 2024 Olympics just over a week away, the French capital has ramped up security measures. Now, moving on, in the United States, online retailers and supporters of Donald Trump are seemingly capitalizing on the recent assassination attempt on the former president and Republican presidential candidate. Products such as t-shirts and trading cards featuring images of Trump raising his fist while bleeding after the shooting at the Pennsylvania campaign rally are flooding the internet. Finally, back here in Korea, popular YouTuber Ziyang has been making headlines after reportedly being blackmailed by several other YouTubers who threatened to expose her past unless she paid them hush money. These channels, often referred to as cyber record channels, specialize in uploading maliciously edited videos aimed at insulting or criticizing celebrities and public figures. In response to the blackmail, Ziyang has announced that she will file a complaint with the prosecutor's office against these YouTubers. Now, the situation highlights the growing problem of cyber record channels in Korea. These channels not only spread malicious and sometimes false information, but now they've gone so far as to extort money from their victims, right, Sang-yeon?
Yeah, so this was what I exactly worried about when the YouTube first came out. So there are both pros and cons of YouTube channels. You can get useful information from thousands, millions of videos out there. But the downside is these videos are not censored thoroughly enough. So obviously, these videos can contain fake news or misinformation. But Korea's fake news punishment is mostly applied to major TV broadcasting media.
Right.
And as for videos on YouTube, they do get punished, but they are not that strictly monitored by the authorities compared to the major media outlets. And these cyber records hide behind the anonymity and tarnish the reputation of others, which should obviously be punished. And at the same time, I think we as viewers should refrain from ourselves watching these kind of malicious information on the YouTube, because if the number of views go down, then obviously the number of people uploading those kind of videos will also be reduced.
And talking about countermeasures, this is the reason why on Monday the Supreme Prosecutor's Office stated that the Prosecutor General has pledged to investigate crimes involving these cyber record channels and handle them in a strict and right manner. So, Ji, for our viewers, could you elaborate on the steps the office plans to take to address this issue?
Sure. So the Supreme Prosecutor's Office stated on Friday that Prosecutor General Lee Won-seok has instructed the nation's frontline prosecutors' offices to take strong action against malicious content publishers, also known as cyber records, as you've well explained. They're advised to vigorously pursue criminal proceeds recovery and protect their victims as well. And the directive specifies that cases involving the intentional posting of false content for profit or repeat offending should be thoroughly investigated, and instances of intimidating and blackmailing victims, as what happened to Ziyang, should result in active arrests, and even cases of simple defamation should, as a rule, be brought to formal trial rather than summary prosecution if the damage caused is significant, such as infringement of personality rights or exposure of private information. And Prosecutor General Lee also advised prosecutors to consider the impact on businesses and families in sentencing and to diligently track criminal proceeds derived from advertising, fundraising, etc. And these proceeds are to be reclaimed through confiscation, collection, conservation, and civil lawsuits.
Right. So hope these measures that the prosecutor's office has rolled out will help prevent or at least minimize these cyber record-related crimes we're seeing. Now, meanwhile, YouTube has taken action by suspending the monetization of channels run by creators suspected of blackmailing Ziyang. And that was our news feed for this Wednesday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day by looking at the screen. It's been a while since we've listened to my AI voice secretary, so let's tune in.
Earlier this month, a car crash in downtown Seoul claimed the lives of 9 people. In another incident, a taxi plowed into a hospital in central Seoul, injuring 3 pedestrians. One day later, a car crashed into the outer wall of a daycare center in Seoul's Gangnam-gu district, injuring the driver and his wife. Although the exact causes of these accidents are still under investigation, there is one common factor: all the drivers were over 65 years old, classified as elderly or senior drivers under Korean law.
Right, so the recent string of accidents mentioned in our VCR has reignited a long-standing debate in our country about the eligibility of senior drivers, that is, whether they're too old to drive. So let's begin by discussing about whether there is an actual link between a driver's age and whether they're more prone to cause accidents.
Sure. So we can't say that there's a causal relationship between age and the car accidents that are caused. But as we can see on the screen, according to data from Crow Road, Korea's traffic authority, the number of accidents caused by older drivers is continuously rising. Now, about 20%, that's 1 out of 5 of all the traffic accidents caused within the country, are by elderly drivers. And the authority said that data shows this number has been increasing continuously.
Right, so this is not a small number, and as you mentioned, the number is increasing, but as you mentioned earlier, we can't definitely say that older drivers are more likely to cause accidents because there can be so much causes related to car accidents, for example, the driver's driving abilities and there may be so much numerous more factors that is causing accidents. So it's really hard to say that senior drivers are the main are causing these accidents, right?
Yeah, so we have been witnessing recently about the media portraying the senior drivers causing car accidents. But if this kind of trend goes way beyond the line, then it will obviously create a negative sentiment towards the elderly drivers in the society. And if it goes way beyond, then it could cause gerontophobia in the society where everyone hates the senior citizens. So as Ji-hee mentioned, 20% of car accidents are caused by the elderly drivers. But this also means that the other 80% are caused by young drivers. And these accidents are not even portrayed in the media because I think they occur too often,
right.
I guess. And many insurance companies levy higher insurance fees to young drivers in 20s and 30s than older drivers above the 60s. So this implies that young drivers cause more car accidents because they have less experience in driving.
Which may be, once again, quite hasty to conclude that senior drivers are more likely to cause accidents. Now, the reason why we chose this topic today is because we are part of the younger generation right now, but as time passes, we'll be part of the older generation. So this is a policy or an issue that will concern us one day. So as part of the younger generation right now, how does the younger generation perceive senior drivers?
Yeah, so according to the recent survey, the public is calling for the cancellation of driver's license of these elderly drivers. Some people also insist older drivers should get their license regularly reviewed and checked. It's because when you get older biologically, you lose the capacity to quickly make decisions and sense of direction. And that's why some people claim the elderly driver's license should be periodically checked.
Right, but on the other hand, there are some who are saying that asking people to return their driver's licenses unilaterally once they reach a certain age doesn't seem to be a fair and also a sustainable solution, right, Ji-hee?
That's right, especially because according to recent stats, our population is aging pretty fast. There are now over 10 million people aged 65 and older, which is a first in our history.
Right.
And this has led to more elderly drivers and more accidents involving them. Now, when I looked at what people are saying, I found that there are concerns about automatically renewing licenses for elderly drivers, like you said, and the possibility of age discrimination if they're not allowed to drive just because of their age. And there are also livelihood-related concerns, especially for professions like taxi drivers, and they tend to be quite older. the average age of these professional taxi drivers. And on the flip side, though, some argue that instead of discriminating based on age, we should focus on improving safety education for all drivers, such as making the renewing of these drivers a little sooner than the current regulation, etc.
Right, and I especially think that this is not only related to causing accidents, but this is also related to the livelihoods of the senior population because, as you mentioned, Ji-hee, a majority of taxi drivers here in Korea are actually more than 65 years old, so this is definitely an issue to consider and talk about. Now, another important reason why this issue requires a more nuanced approach is because it can, in a broader perspective, lead to generational conflicts and an unjust stigma against senior citizens, which you've mentioned, Sang-yeon.
Yeah, right. So whenever I see the comment section of the online news articles portraying the accidents caused by the elderly drivers, I can see that people are recklessly condemning senior citizens, which make me kind of really sad. And these comments can make the elderly feel intimidated. And we have already seen similar cases in the daily life, such as when we see older people using kiosks or mobile devices. We tend to feel annoyed by their mismanagement or their lack of capacity of using such technology, which can be quite rude. And as for the accident that happened at the City Hall station a few weeks ago, it's the driver that has caused the catastrophe, not the elderly as a whole. So if we constantly denounce others by making unnecessary generalizations, this could go on and on forever, only leading to hate speech in the society.
Definitely. So we've now discussed what the younger generation here in Korea are thinking about senior drivers and their driving eligibility. Now, to find out more, we also reached out to our viewers to get their thoughts on senior citizens driving. And here's what 3 of them had to say. Leon says there's a prevalent belief that elderly drivers are more likely to be involved in accidents. However, elderly drivers possess greater driving experience and caution, which can make them safer overall. Shino says in America, honestly, no matter what people say, you can definitely see their difference in reaction time and decision making. Sunny says as the process of aging varies, age cannot be the only determinant of one's ability to safely drive. As long as senior citizens meet the same requirements for driving as younger drivers, I think it will be fine for them to continue driving. So we've taken a look at the opinions of the younger generation in other parts of the world. Now, for more insight on this debate and the policies or changes needed in a rapidly aging society, we're now going to invite an expert to join our talks right after this break. So today we're joined by Hansang Jin, Associate Professor of Transport Studies at Seoul National University's Graduate School of Environmental Studies. Welcome, Professor Han, to the show.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you. So, Professor, our first question for you is, we briefly touched upon this in our discussion earlier, but why are we seeing more senior drivers today, and what do you think fuels the controversy over whether they should be allowed to drive?
Yes, the first reason is the fast-growing number of the elderly drivers. Particularly, baby boomers start to have driving license in Korean history. So in their generation, 1 in 2 people has a driver license. Previous generation, they don't have much driver license. But from baby boomers, they start to drive a lot. So current elderly people drive more than previous elderly people. That is the main reason. So as more number of elderly drivers are on the road and they are likely to be involved with crashes, and media find it is newsworthy, but the statistics show different stories. That is a very important point, I think. So if you look at the statistics, so the elderly is not the main group when it comes to the risky drivers. In general, 20s, younger drivers show higher number of crashes per 1,000 drivers than the elderly people. So I think it's unfair to focus on the elderly drivers only, let alone to prohibit driving. That's the point.
I see. I think that's a very good point. And mentioning the statistics once again, and I'm like to make sure that we don't stigmatize the driving of elderly people. Now, could you tell us about the policies for senior drivers in other countries? Then, are they different from those in Korea?
Yes. I think Japan is doing very well. They firstly promote driving graduation. It's very interesting to use the term like graduation. It emphasizes that all people should start driving at certain stage of their life. So people are ready to quit driving when they are unable to drive anymore. They think about it, and the society emphasizes it altogether. And another is the subsidy policy to the elderly drivers. So we called, in Japanese, they say support and support S. They subsidize elderly drivers if they wish to install ADAS, advanced driving assistance systems, including automatic emergency braking systems and anti-sudden acceleration equipment. I think a technical approach is quite important, and they are doing very well in Japan. Australia, they are doing also very well. They emphasize, it is mandatory to get driving aptitude test every year after age 80 or 85. That kind of strong aptitude test make sure who should not driving anymore. It's fair as well. The most important difference between Korea and other countries is that medical system, I think. In Western society, doctors usually recommend not to drive if he or she got a certain disease, irrespective of their ages. If they suffer from diseases which can cause a danger when they driving, then doctors say you mustn't drive anymore. But in Korea, such things are not happening well. I think that's the medical system difference.
Okay, I see. So moving on to the last question, Professor. As you know, the seniors are expected to account for a larger portion of our national population. Then what policies or institutions do you think are needed to create a safer road environment for both senior drivers and the pedestrians?
The first is to change the threshold criterion of the elderly drivers. I think that should be changed from 65 to 75. The statistics also shows that the likelihood to cause crashes increase after 75 rather than 65. So I think that needs to be changed in the near future. And I think it's also important to allow elderly drivers driving safely as long as possible if they live in the rural areas. In the rural areas, it is quite difficult to use public transport, and driving is essential for their lives. So maybe we can introduce conditional driving license system, although they cannot maintain official driving license. We may allow elderly drivers, for example, can drive if they are driving the cars equipped with ADAS that I mentioned before, and if they drive daytime only, for example. or if they are not using the motorway, that kind of conditional driving license can be issued in the future. And I think the most important policy should be to promote installing safe equipment in the cars. So ADAS is very important when it comes to the safety. Many studies shows that cars with ADAS is much safer, particularly among the elderly drivers. So governments may subsidize to install such equipment in the cars.
Great. All right. Thank you, Professor Han, for your insights today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Right, so last but not least, expanding on our interview, I want to first ask you, Ji-hee, the current policies involving senior drivers here in Korea, and to Sang-yeon, what kind of improvements that you'd like to see in these policies?
Sure. Currently, we have drivers who are 65 or older must renew their driver's license every once in 5 years, unlike the usual 10 years. And in order to renew them, they're required to take various tests, such as the aptitude test, dementia test, and transport safety education examination, but I think it's a little long and the age is a little too low. So I think it should be expanded and the duration should be shortened.
I see. Now, any improvements that you'd like to see?
Yeah, so just like Professor Han mentioned, I think there should be more stringent functions in the automobiles which prevents the malfunction of the brakes and accelerators for the elderly drivers. So I think more automakers should apply those kind of innovative tools and equipment when making cars, and the elderly drivers will feel safer and assured when they drive. And I think the regular checkup of the driver license should be applied for both the elderlies and the general public as a whole.
All right. Hope to see more efforts that could increase the safety of both pedestrians and drivers. Now, that's all from us today, but we'll be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Choi Ji-hee.
Thank you.
And Im Sang-yeon.
My pleasure.
And before we say goodbye, Arirang TV is conducting a program survey including news generation in order to meet our viewers' expectations. So please visit us at our official website or mobile app Arirang TV for your valuable feedback and get a chance to win Bluetooth earbuds and K-pop merch. Once again, thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.